With me is the gentleman who's messed with my camera, all of my visual settings and audio. So if you can't hear me or see me, you can only have one man to blame. No, we've got Caleb Anderson with us today, who is a partner agent with us at Seagup Real Estate Services. Known him actually a really long time. He's been on a few other videos with us over time, but I'm excited to have his perspective to join here. As we've talked about in the past with Connor, Zach, Izzy, it's always nice to have somebody with a little bit different perspective, having a look at some of the things that we're going to talk about. But we're going to go over things that have happened in Fort Collins, city council review, and things to do this coming weekend and week moving forward. So stick with us. We have got an Aldi potentially coming into Fort Collins at where Joann's used to be. Do you know what building? You know the First Watch building, Caleb? The building to the left with kind of the wood shake shingles on the front?
Oh, yeah.
So that's where they're considering putting this in. They would demo it and then build this 18,000-foot Aldi's. Have you by chance been to the new King Supers?
Actually, yes.
What do you think about it?
Awesome, great space. I still think the ideas of an Aldi's is great. It's kind of a different market. King Supers is like generic grocery stuff. Aldi's is a little bit closer to kind of a Whole Foods. Aldi's also has some good affordable options for produce. That's something I hear people in like the FIRE movement talk about a lot, is how much they like Aldi's and how great of a resource it is. So I actually think it'd be nice to have some variety yet, even though I like that King Supers. You're
big into the FIRE. Financial independence, retire early, for those of you guys that like acronyms. I went been to the King Supers. It's beautiful. It's absolutely spectacular. But one thing that I noticed was the parking and the flow of traffic in that parking lot really is not awesome.
Right.
And then you'll actually be there too. And there's no, from what I've seen, no cart returns. And my guess is because of the limited parking there. So you'll have carts kind of just scattered over the parking lot, unfortunately. But yeah, all these, it's crazy when we work with as many folks as we do that are relocating to the area. Sometimes the questions are, how close is the nearest Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or Sprouts? And, this is kind of another store that people coming from, the East that might be more familiar Midwest with an Aldi's comparatively to us might ask, hey, whoa, you guys have an Aldi's, didn't realize. Mm-hmm. But let's see here. Village Medical is to closing their CSU urgent care, not because of anything besides. So one, Village Medical is considered. It sounds like they're selling. They're owned by Walgreens, but they're selling, and kind of the word on the street is Banner Health is buying them, and which makes sense when it's not that Village Medical, which is an urgent care, is closing down. Their lease is not renewed. And there's basically kind of three heavyweights in Fort Collins for healthcare: UC Health, Banner, and Kaiser Permanente. But Kaiser is really pretty tiny in Northern Colorado. So it makes sense. UC Health probably wouldn't want a Banner Health in its facility if that does happen to be the truth. Man, I know you're Greeley. You got Banner out there. Do you know, is your healthcare through Banner or UC Health?
Actually, UC Health. And it's interesting. We're a split decision. My wife is through the school district that she works for in Greeley. So she's through Banner. Our private insurance has always been through UC Health, and they kind of dominate that Greeley space as well. Both are super good hospitals. Both have super good medical facilities. Kind of going to be interesting to see what goes back in on that bottom over at the CSU Medical Center. But we work with both. I really have liked my UC Health experience. That's actually where we had our baby.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, at Poudre Valley or where?
Nope. The new UC Health right off of Highway 34 over in West Greeley.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So they've expanded.
They're buying, it must be the business practice or whatever, but a ton of private practices are just getting gobbled up by these big, health organizations, the Banners and UC Health's, all these private practices. My cousin's ear, nose, and throat practice was purchased and bought out by UC Health. And seems like it's just kind of the way things are going that kind of makes sense for them. A new Colorado tax credit this season. Now it's kind of for which is crazy to say, lower income earners with up to $85,000 for an individual filer, $95,000 for joint. But it's through the state of Colorado. So I believe there's, what's funny is I don't know, is there's a federal child tax credit, which I believe is $3,000 per child.
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Yeah, I guess I'm pretty sure. And I do have a guy that does my taxes, so I just kind of hope that he's doing the best and overview everything at the end. But let's see here. In Colorado, though, you're potentially eligible for a tax credit. Now, $120 per child on the higher earners, up to $3,200 for the lower income individuals. So some tax savings there. And from my understanding, you can start filing your taxes in Colorado. They're looking through returns.
They are looking through returns now. They had a hold through, I think, middle of last week or beginning of last week, but they're finally processing returns.
I saw this funny meme. I saw that it was like, I'm going to extend my file an extension for my tax return so that the government has enough time to abolish the IRS. And I was like, I kind of thought it was funny. I was like, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not. I've never filed an extension in my life for any of my personal or company tax returns. I just like to get that out of the way, done, moved on with my life. But I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, maybe. One thing to mention while we're on live, if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to ask them and we will answer them here, while we're live. And then if you're watching this on a rerun, comment down below. Okay. Have you had any friends or family impacted by any of the government layoffs, whether it be national forests, parks, any type of other governmental programs that are being impacted, DEI programs or anything along those lines?
Yes, we've had some people actually in rural eastern Colorado that were government employees. They had some different involvements with like extension offices and different educational services like that. And they've seen a couple of jobs go away. I've actually not known anyone up here in the Front Range who's been impacted yet personally. Seen some posts, things like that shared around, but I've got no friends or immediate connections that have. So while we're definitely seeing that be a big piece, lots of layoffs, lots of job loss, I don't think it's really impacted us too bad in this area. Although I know you've got some more specifics on kind of the parks and wildlife, et cetera.
Yeah, coincidentally, I went to a basketball game a week and a half ago or so with a buddy who works for the state forest, and the state forest is protected. I should say at this time, his job was not in line of being cut, but it's definitely something that they were watching, concerned about. He said there was a few anxious nights. And then my other buddy who works at CSU, a big portion of CSU's budget is through grants and loans. And, there's also some rules and regulations that they got to play by, the DEI stuff. And there's some language that I don't have the exact quotes of, but essentially if you're contributing to or advancing a DEI program, you are not going to be eligible for federal funds. And which is, universities is a big place where a lot of that kind of stuff happens. And he was even saying, my friend was like, well, there was this program that was researching, the differences between a boy and a girl when they feel they're one way or the other. And it's like, right, wrong, or indifferent, not to say anything besides being able to research that and have maybe some insights onto what that is. You're like, well, now we won't, because we don't have the funds to do that, or we're not supposed to. So while Fort Collins doesn't have it's a very diverse economy, lots of different industry. CSU is a big, backbone of it. And I would say this individual that I'm friends with, who works at CSU is like, if some of these things happen, there could be a lot of people who lose jobs and potentially, need to sell their house. And so we're definitely watching it pretty closely and keeping an eye on it to see what's going on. There was a lot of anxiety and concern at the very beginning. It seems like a good not majority, but a good portion of that has kind of subsided, but still something to watch.
But I think you're right. It was a big scare factor. I had some people that worked in university adjacent jobs, and they were concerned that they weren't going to get pre-approvals or that their job was going to go disappearing as they were looking for homes even. So I think whether it comes to fruition or not, I definitely think it's been a point of emphasis in a lot of people's minds.
Sure. Yeah. I'm terrible right now. We're having some stuff going on with my oldest, and it's just like, it takes a lot of brain space. So, a lot of people, employment's important. And if your job, there's a lot of anxiety and stress. So regardless, if you're going through that, hopefully you're taking care of yourself, and good luck to you no matter what. All right, jumping into the city council session. Now, it's kind of a boring city council work session, but it's important. Some things that are important. The discussion item was essentially 5 ordinances. And I want to show my screen real quick because I think it's important to understand the difference between city charter and city code. So city charter, are governing documents that essentially tell us how we can operate Fort Collins. And, essentially here's some, kind of city council term limits, mayoral powers, election rules, and those have to be voted on by public vote. Whereas city code are kind of the laws and regulations that we go by on a day-to-day basis that can be changed by city council. And some of these ordinances can all be voted on. The 5 ordinances that were under discussion were Fort Collins to clarify and revise the process for enforcement of campaign violations, and then the restrictions and requirements related to campaign contributions in city elections, and then remove write-in candidates in city elections. The last 2 were revise the requirements for petition circulators. And then finally, there was a variety of keeping things consistent, updating various sections related to the city elections for consistency with the city charter and within Chapter 7. So I will jump into kind of the slides, and we'll go through each of these kind of in order. All right. Just what you wanted to talk about today, Caleb, city elections. Have you ever thought about running for city government for any reason or any desire to do that ever?
Not one bit, actually. It's funny, the only people that I've really interacted with that have been in city government typically get involved because there's something that they want to change personally. So whether it's been code and building restrictions, whether it's been business-related items, the only people that I know that have had a heavy involvement have done so because they felt like they needed to have their hand in the pot of whatever was impacting them directly. So I don't know a lot of people that do it just for fun. A lot of people seem to have motives when they get into local government.
Sure. I've watched city council for the last 3 years every week. So I've been paying attention to it pretty closely during that time. But prior to that, I think it was like 2016 or 17, the city was putting in a short-term rental ordinance. And I was very much engaged because at that time I was operating 3 short-term rentals, and it was directly impacting my life. One thing that actually, an individual that you know, and I didn't take it very seriously at the time, but was really national politics are important, and sure, and state politics, but really where people should pay the majority of attention to is local politics, because a lot of those decisions that are being made are what will affect you on a day-to-day basis that you will like directly see. Of course, tax rates and stuff of that nature for on the federal side of things, and maybe, transportation departments, but on the local level, it's what will impact you really closely on a day-to-day. So starting here at campaign violations. So the biggest thing was that they have to be based on factual information. And there's criminal violations, and then kind of more like administrative, I don't know if that's the right word, but administrative type violations where maybe, because one of the things that they kept talking about were a lot of these city council members, this is their first foray into local government, running campaigns. So they kind of get into hot water inadvertently. And so there could be a monetary fine, but it used to be somebody could just, kind of put a wrench in your spokes as far as a campaign, because it used to be just reason to believe to submit a violation. One of the biggest things that the city of Fort Collins is discussing, and a lot of the public comment was a election committee oversight board, essentially like an unbiased third party that reviews all of these election, violations and campaign contributions and everything along those lines to make sure everyone's playing fair. Because from right now there is an election committee, but it's in a roundabout way. The city council is the employer of the people that are making these rulings on them. And so there's kind of this concern of like, if these people are making rulings against their employer, is there going to be retribution? So what they're wanting is maybe some, election committee oversight board, so that can kind of be done away with. They're working on that. But regardless, if you're running a campaign and you're not playing by the rules, whether that's on purpose or not on purpose, the campaign violation process will most likely be a monetary deal that you can fix. But if it's criminal, obviously from there, a lot kind of heavier. Write-in candidates. Now, this is what was most hotly contested. All 4 of the 5 ordinances that were on the docket passed 7-0. This was the only one that passed 5-2. Susan Gutowski and Kelly Olson were the dissenting votes on this one. And what's interesting, trivia question. Does every ballot previous to this decision for the city of Fort Collins have a write-in candidate available? Did the previous ballots have a write-in candidate available on all options?
My answer is going to be no.
It's correct. You always would have a write-in candidate for, I believe, for sure president, but I believe also for some state offices. Mm-hmm. But on the local level, really, it seemed like it was kind of a nothing burger, because essentially all you have to have in Fort Collins to be basically put on the ballot or campaign, or however all this works, is 25 signatures, and you have to sign an affidavit saying that you believe that you can be, you qualify from all these other requirements to run for city of Fort Collins, but 25 signatures. And they have to be done a certain amount of time. I think it's like 75 days or something along those lines. 71 days. And the only time there was going to be a write-in was if between 71 days and like 65 days, it was like 6 days, someone decided to run, got 25 signatures, they could then be a write-in candidate on the ballot. And so really, all from what I could see, we were talking about 6 days. That was what we were essentially getting rid of. Additionally, when I talked earlier about city code versus city charter, there's charter language that talks about who can actually govern. And it doesn't say that a write-in candidate can do that because they haven't been nominated. So there's kind of this language, and there was 2 different ways they could go to clean this up. So to make sure that either A, write-in candidates can't, run, because if you remember in Windsor, there was the mayor race, and the individual who actually run wasn't able to take position because of term limits. So he won an election and then had to give up his post because the charter said, no, you can't do this based off of term limits. So our concern at the city of Fort Collins was, if this write-in candidate wins, can they actually take seat and govern? And what their answer was no. So either we could change the charter, but that would have to go to a public vote, or kind of path of least resistance, remove write-in candidates. And that's kind of what they decided to do. I really didn't see this as a big deal. Mostly because, again, we're talking like 6 days, and that's because the county runs our elections, and they require some specific deadlines for candidates and things of that nature. And so I didn't think it was too big of a deal, but people were not excited about it at public comment. They definitely wanted the choice for write-in candidates. I mean,
which is interesting. I would love to see, and maybe I know I definitely don't. I would love to see if there's ever been a write-in candidate that's won a significant election in Fort Collins, especially. And if there's not been, I don't know that there's really any weight to that, and it's a nothing burger in my eyes as well.
Not in Fort Collins, but they do have success stories from write-in candidates in places like I want to say like Illinois or Indiana. So there are success stories, but not that I'm aware of, at least in the city of Fort Collins. Here was an interesting one. This is petition circulation. It used to be that if any person asked you to read the petition, you would have to read this entire petition. And what my guess is what started this was during the land use code, there was a lot of petitioners out there trying to get signatures and getting people to sign. And the land use code was like 500 pages. So technically you could have gone to that individual and asked them, and they would have been required to read you the entire thing prior to you signing anything. So you could have definitely gummed up a lot of people's times, to say the least. But what this is saying basically it will make the entire text accessible by any reasonable method. So it's saying they can make it available to you, whether that be Braille or in writing or lots of different things. But it's kind of an interesting thing. Again, just kind of cleaning things up, making sure that, I would say, with the vast amount of information and how quickly information can move, if there's a little cheat code, people will know about it real quick. Hey, if you guys want to really screw these, petitioners, just go and ask them to read the petition, and they will have to read it in its entire length.
Yeah, I think this one's a good change. Makes things more efficient, still provides everybody with information. I think that one's actually beneficial.
Campaign contributions. Now, what's cool about watching some of these city council meetings is I learn a lot, honestly. And this is kind of one of them that I learned. I kind of was always curious about, contribution limits and why they are what they are and why they're so low. Well, it's, just so people can't buy the election. And this allows kind of your run of the mill, average Joe citizen, maybe, a worker who's working 9 to 5s, but really sees that desire to have a change, be able to go and raise competitively against somebody who maybe is, they can always self-fund these races. So that's right. A totally different thing. But as far as raising funds from the public, it's a fair game. And but they wanted to increase them because they hadn't been increased since year 2000. So essentially what they looked at was like, hey, let's increase for inflation and actually dial it back a little bit to still not make it like too much of an ability to, buy a race.
Right.
So, have you ever contributed to any financial campaigns?
Actually, back home, yes. Some of this is prior to my Fort Collins existence, but in my small town, I had a neighbor running for mayor who had been previous mayor, had done a great job, and was coming up for their final potential reelection. And we did some contributions to them, knowing that we thought they were genuinely the best option for our little town.
Sure. I love watching city government. I think I heard somebody just say this the other day, and it's true. It's too bad if you want to get involved with government that you have to put an R or a D by your name, even if you don't necessarily agree with all of one of the things. It's just, that's just the system that we live in. And with that comes maybe a dislike for you on one side or the other. So, for me personally, there was one time with our HOA, we had our HOA, and there was a group of residents that loved the current president, the current board and president. And then there was a group that thought that these people were the worst humans of all time, like financially stealing and mismanaging. And so there was this contingent that wanted to, and ultimately were successful voting them off the board, getting them all removed, and like the new guard taking place. And I remember them, they were trying to, bring up and get an energy high. And they talked to me and they said, do you want to be on the new board? And I said, hell no. I said, well, one, why am I going to basically rule out half of my neighbors to not like me, and the other half maybe like me, So I was like, man, I have no interest even joining an HOA board, let alone any type of city council, city government, anytime in the near future. Now, I have been on a couple of boards for like NARPM or even what was it? IRM. I was on the board of IRM and different institutions and governing bodies of whatever. But I quickly learned that they didn't. I couldn't give them the mental bandwidth that they deserved. And I think if you're going to do this, you got to do it right. Like Kelly Olson will be a podcast guest here shortly. And whether you love him or hate him, because he does kind of get that love or hate, he comes to every meeting prepared. And that's because this is his life. This is his livelihood. And not many people could come read a 529-page packet every week on top of their day-to-day job. So
whether you enjoy politics or not, we at least need to give some props to the people that want to be involved, so the rest of us can slack off. And your HOA example is a great example. Even if you want to do the right thing and you're trying to make, in that case, your community, your neighborhood a little bit better, you're automatically going to ostracize yourself a little bit, whether you do the right thing or the wrong thing. You put a little target on your back. So I think there's a lot to be said for the people that are willing to step up and do those jobs for us. I know I'm not.
No, what's funny is my house was the old HOA's president, or the old HOA president's house. And there were some things that he kind of let slide by on the architectural review. And so I think there's some benefit. Now, like you said, if you want to, like Janae, she wants to be able to have chickens, which I have zero desire, but she's like, well, maybe we have to get on there and change some of the governing documents.
Yeah. Good luck. Have fun.
Here's a quick story for you on that one. Our old HOA board. Okay. So again, maybe the reason why people weren't super excited about them. I was inquiring. I'm pretty sure I knew that we couldn't have chickens at our house, but I inquired. I reached out to our manager of the HOA and I said, hey, I just want to check to see and verify, are we allowed or not allowed to have chickens on our property? And it was such an easy opportunity to say, oh, no, unfortunately, there's not, section whatever, blah, blah. Her response was, see page 35, section 242, paragraph 5. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, I have to go. I mean, I knew exactly where she was talking about because I had seen it. I just wanted to verify. Maybe something had changed. Maybe something had been updated that I didn't know about. But see page this, and I was like, oh, that is such a terrible answer.
Yeah, pretty dry.
Yeah. Here's the I'm not going to go through any of that because I don't really, honestly, I didn't track on that. Election reporting deadlines. A lot of this is kind of for on the financial side of things. Ranked voting. Ranked voting also is also why they kind of were going against write-in candidates. It kind of screws up that a little bit. So they were also like, hey, you know what? To keep this totally clean, let's not have write-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Duties of the clerk. And then I wanted to, where'd it go? Petition. What did we talk about? We talked about petitioners, write-in candidates. We talked about contributions, cleaning up the language. I think is that it?
I think so.
Huh. I feel like we're missing one, but regardless, all four of the other 5 ordinances that were passed 7-0, being the only one that was this write-in candidate. So, all right, let's jump into, there's 2 other things that I want to talk about today, which is things to do, and also a development under review that I sent to the team the other day. But, I think this is, I'm going to be watching it pretty closely, but it is a request to build an accessory dwelling unit on Meldrum. And this was February 15th was when the law passed to now allow ADUs in all of Fort Collins. So I'm going to be kind of watching those developments under review and see what the conceptual views are and see if this is a trend for a while of people wanting to build ADUs, because I thought that was super interesting to see.
I think you're going to see a little uptick for sure. The process got easier. Real estate's expensive. I think it's a great opportunity to add some value to your lot, or some potential value, even if you just use it as an office or a mother-in-law suite or a visitor suite. I think it's got some great potential to do good things for real estate specifically here in town. So I think we're going to see a bunch of those pop up for the rest of the year.
Totally. Yeah. I thought about it at ours, like now that we're kind of doing the podcast studio at the building that we're looking at in July, but I was like, man, it'd be cool just to do something at our house, and have like a little studio that I could convert into an apartment. So definitely we'll be watching that. All right, things to do this coming week and weekend. Not a week from today. I think is it this Saturday, March 1st through March 14th is Great Plates. Have you ever participated in Great Plates, Caleb?
I have not.
No. Okay. Well, it's pretty cool. Basically, there are participating restaurants downtown, and what they do is essentially a lot of them offer like a package, right? So you can go, and it's not just food, it's drinks. You can go to places like Social, I'm sure is I know in the past have done it. And there is a list of restaurants to do it. But essentially they'll say you can do these 2 drinks and this charcuterie board. And it normally would probably be, let's just say, $50. And they're doing it for $20 for that combination of food and plates, but with the intention to then take the delta between what it would have cost and what they're charging you and donate that to, I believe it is I wonder what it is. I believe it's it is a nonprofit downtown. I can't remember what it is, but it's for food for the poor, essentially, helping lower income individuals with food. I can't remember what the organization's called, but essentially that's the gist. So instead of $50, it was $20, but then you take that $30 that you would have spent and donate it to Great Plates, which then goes to this kind of group of, fundraising, things of that nature. So it goes from March 1st through March 14th. And there is a long list of restaurants that are involved with this and opportunities and bars and everything like that. So definitely would recommend that coming up this weekend to start partaking in that.
Yeah, more than 50 fun places, and it's always good to help somebody. And I believe they do some drawings and giveaways through that as well. So it'd be pretty fun to go partake in.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the next thing is State of the City is tonight at 4 p.m. at the Lincoln Center. I don't think you can attend now, but they are streaming it live on YouTube. And if you are looking to see what's happened in Fort Collins over the last years in 2024 and some plans for the future, let's see here, Kelly DiMartino and Mayor Jenny Arndt are going to be talking for, I think it usually goes for about an hour to 2 hours. If that is of interest to you, make sure to watch that. Have you ever watched The State of the City?
Actually, I've popped on in years past. Same thing, just trying to make sure, keep the pulse on the market, keep pulse on what's going on. I will not be partaking tonight. I've got some other real estate work going on, but a good thing to hop on if you've got the time and bandwidth.
Absolutely. I'll be doing kind of a review of it. We'll be doing that next week, kind of talk about that. We did have a comment that came in and says, hey guys, when you have a minute, can you speak briefly on what area of the city I should look to buy? Well, that's kind of an open-ended question. So I definitely would have follow-up questions to be able to give you any serious kind of feedback. Happy to do that. Would love to do that. Send us an email and we can do that. But there's so many different parts. One thing that I've always thought about doing, and I haven't, is a personality map of Fort Collins. Now, I'm not going to do that because of probably fair housing laws, and I'm very much about not getting in trouble with that. But I think it's very important. Like, there's definitely like vibes and personalities of the area. On like for me on the southeast side, it's definitely more suburban type, little bit bigger lots, a little bit bigger houses, paths and parks all over the place, great schools, great area for, kids to be there with public schools all around. And then you got like places like downtown. It's like, if your personality is like, I like to walk out my back door and go have a coffee and then a beer at night and walk and ride everywhere, that's kind of that personality. But would love to talk to you a little bit more, Nash, and send us an email and we can ask some follow-up questions. But lots of places all over Fort Collins and Northern Colorado. Caleb's actually got a couple of videos coming out. He'll be doing something on our pre-recorded videos about Fort Collins versus Greeley, actually this Friday. That video is dropping, so excited to see that one. But also different parts of Northern Colorado. Like if you're set to Fort Collins, that's one thing, that's great. But if you're open to kind of explore other areas, we are dialed in all over Northern Colorado. So that is all I've got for today. Caleb, appreciate you joining, man.
Of course. Thanks for all your good insight. We appreciate you. All things Fort Collins.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you next Monday, and we'll have a little bit of review of that State of the City. So if you can, watch it tonight at 4 p.m. Otherwise, have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, buddy.